Hey guys, this is Dave with Audio In. Now, if you are familiar with my reviews, you're probably aware that one of the things I bring up all the time is how common V-shaped sound signatures are in budget IEMs under $100, and even in some of the slightly more expensive IEMs that push closer to the $200 to $250 price point. And just to be clear, I don't have a problem with V-shaped tuned IEMs. As a matter of fact, I have a few sets that have V-shaped signatures that I love, like the IA600 and SA6MK2. But the reason I like those is because the low mids aren't destroyed by bass bleed, and they don't completely sacrifice naturalness in exchange for that fun listening experience like many other entry-level V-shaped IEMs do. So now we have the Celest Relentless. It's priced at $169 and it has a V-shaped sound signature. And it definitely does fall into that fun category. But the question is, does the fun come at the expense of mid-range clarity and naturalness? Well, we're about to find out. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. In the box, we have the IEMs and cable. It also comes with a simple case, a very nice assortment of ear tips, a cleaning tool, and a neat little bookmark. So as I had mentioned, the Relentless is priced at $169, and it has a 7-driver hybrid setup consisting of 1 dynamic driver and then 6 balanced armature drivers. The drivers are housed in this all-resin shell, which has a 3D printed internal acoustic structure. And if you look very closely, you can see that the shells are actually very well made, and that gloss finish is very clean. The faceplate design is simple, but very nice. It looks sort of like cresting waves, and apparently it was inspired in part by the East China Sea, but also by the feathers of the Relentless bird. In any case, I do think they did a beautiful job with the design. It's also very light and comfortable, and with the included wide bore large tips, I was able to get an excellent fit and seal without any issues at all. The cable is also really nice for this price point. It's modular, which means you can switch between a 3.5 single-ended and a 4.4 balanced termination. And then on the earpiece side, it has 2-pin connectors. But what I really love about the cable is just how manageable it is. It's not super soft necessarily, but it is soft enough. But more importantly, I've just had no issues with tangling, and it has basically no memory, and it's just super easy to roll up and store in the case. So again, overall, it's just very easy to manage. Okay, let's move on to the sound. So as I had mentioned in my opening, the sound signature of the Relentless is V-shaped. So there's an emphasis on bass and treble with recessed mids. And there's a reason this signature is referred to often as being fun and engaging. But that can also come at a cost. And just to remind you of some of the issues that can be present with certain types of V-shaped signatures, there are lots of things that can go wrong, but two of the most prevalent issues are muddiness in the low mids due to bass bleed and vocal or instrument unnaturalness caused by sucked out or overly recessed mid-range. Not to mention the potential for fatigue if you have too much energy in the upper mids or treble. And the reality is most V-shaped sets have one or more of those issues, and it's extremely rare to find a set with none of those issues. Even my beloved IE600, while avoiding most of those issues, can still sometimes become a little fatiguing depending on what I'm listening to and how long I'm listening for. So we've established this is a fun and engaging set, but what, if anything, does it sacrifice in exchange? Well, let's break the sound down, then we'll circle back to that question towards the end. We'll start with the bass. So in terms of bass quantity, I'm not sure this would necessarily qualify as a bass head IEM, but it definitely does have a bit of a stronger V shape. So again, there is enough bass to give a more fun and engaging presentation. And of all the sets I have out here on my desk, the Relentless actually has the most bass energy. Now, in terms of bass quality, it's actually quite good in terms of dynamics and just tactility, but the transition of the bass into the lower mids isn't as clean as it could be because there is a little bit of bass bleed in the lower mid range. So while it does maybe intrude into the low mids a little, it does still give you nice amounts of slam and impact. Plus, it's going to have pretty good extension as well. So the sub bass frequencies are laying a nice foundation for the rest of those bass frequencies. So again, it does have a small amount of bass bleed in the lower mid range, and it does introduce a little bit of muddiness into the mix, but it's actually not bad. I've heard much worse in this price range. My biggest complaint with the mid-range would actually be with the dip or the amount of recession that is happening right between about 500 and 700 hertz. Because while again, the signature is very fun and it is engaging, they achieved that, but the dip is pretty substantial and it does cause things to sound just a little sucked out and maybe even a little unnatural in the mid-range where the instruments and vocals land. And then as you move into the upper mids, there is a gradual rise that peaks out right around 2.2K. So that energy does start to pick up in the ear gain region. And what that does is it starts to bring some energy back into vocals, especially female vocals, and some instruments that land there. And between that upper mid range and that added treble energy, it's enough to offset the bass, which is great because it does keep the overall presentation in balance. And then as we move up into the treble, the energy really starts to pick up as you might expect with a V-shaped signature. And for me personally, it's kind of riding that edge of starting to become a little fatiguing at points. So if you are treble sensitive, that is definitely something you might want to take into consideration before purchasing this IEM. Now, because of the amount of energy in the high frequencies, what that's going to do is put cymbal strikes and hi-hats a little more forward in the mix, again, contributing to that exciting and fun presentation. So that's good from an engagement standpoint. However, I did notice that sometimes cymbals could sound a little splashy, and depending on what I was listening to, again, they could just be a little too forward and again sound a little uncontrolled and splashy. So depending on your preference, there can be some good and bad trade-offs. And one of the good trade-offs, at least with the Relentless, is that you get lots of detail in the treble, but not just detail, you're going to get lots of micro details because it has great treble extension. And because of that extra upper treble energy, it also means it's going to deliver nice amounts of air and shimmer. And then finally, we have technical performance. But before we talk about that, I feel like I need to reiterate the importance of individual preference. We all have our biases, so there are things I like and I don't like, and generally speaking, if I'm going to be doing some personal listening, I'm more likely to reach for a neutral set than I am a V-shaped set. That being said, if you look at my collection, and I've talked about this before, not all of my IEMs are neutral or variations of neutral. I have lots of different IEMs that not only span the price spectrum, but also span the tuning spectrum as well. So yes, of course, most of my personal collection does consist of IEMs with neutral or variations of neutral signatures, but there are lots of times when I just don't feel like listening to a neutral set, and I'll grab something like my IE600 or the new Pilgrim. Of course, the Pilgrim does have a little more of a U-shape. It does kind of ride that line between neutral and U-shape. But one thing those two sets, the IE600 and the Pilgrim, have in common is the engagement and how engaging and exciting the presentation is. And they're both highly technical as well. And there are times when I will prioritize those attributes, so highly technical, highly energetic, and engaging, over tuning. And that's how I feel about this set. This is a highly engaging and pretty technical set for this price range. So not only does it give you great levels of detail and micro detail, it's also going to give you a nice immersive sound field. So it gives you a nice wide soundstage, at least for IEM, and it also gives you decent forward depth and instrument separation as well, which is not super common at this price point. And then that kind of brings us into comparisons and value. So in terms of technical performance, we've established this is competent and it competes with some of the best under $200. Maybe not quite to the levels of the Chopin or the Performer 5, but it can easily throw blows with virtually all of the other 15 or so sets that I compared it with, like the PA02, Cara Origin, OD200, EA1000 Fermat, Wind, the Quintet, and a bunch of others. So its technical performance is great, but the attribute that really stood out to me was how engaging, fun, and immersive it was, which of course, those are the attributes I love about the IE600. Now, of course, it can't compete with the IE600 on a technical level, but if I was on a budget and I was looking for those specific attributes, or maybe just something to kind of spice my personal collection up a little bit with, I would absolutely take this set under consideration. But at the end of the day, honestly, it's not a neutral set. And yes, along with its great technical performance and its engaging qualities, it does also bring with it some of the issues that are commonly associated with this type of tuning. But this is one of those rare instances where I think the trade-off may be worth it for those, again, that are looking for a budget-friendly, engaging set, or for those who would maybe prioritize excitement and great technical performance over a more neutral or natural presentation. So that concludes my review of the Celest Relentless. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch. If you like my content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.